Well, hey guys, and welcome to another Ask ZAC. Today we're going to talk about the Mostortion, but first we have something that we need to address. So in a past episode talking about the Nobles, I spoke for a bit about Tom Bukovac and kind of his influence on the Nobles and its popularity. Tom actually made a response video, and it turned out that one of my sources was wrong, or had seen things incorrectly. So I had said that Tom, well, what I had heard was that Tom was selling pedals while on tour, and he corrected me in that he was getting boxes of pedals from the U.S. distributor of Nobles pedals, and he was giving them away. So there you have it, a correction. Also, Tom mentioned Mike E's music, where he found out about the Nobles, which of course that was a very interesting piece of info. Mike E's was a great store that was full of crazy kind of junky stuff, and also, you know, kind of weird 60s off-brand British amps and parts, and you could find like Vox, Celestion, you know, silver speakers and all sorts of crazy things. So it was a great shop, and that's also where Brad Paisley first played through a Dr. Z amp, and so Mike E's pretty important shop. I also want to give Bukovac further props in that I don't think maybe some people understand just how influential, you know, he is. A lot of other people use the Nobles pedal because of him. Like Tim Pierce found out about the pedal because of that. And then it's like you see Dean Parks and all these other LA guys now using the Nobles pedal because Book clued in like Tim Pierce on it. Another thing about Tom is that when he hit the scene, man, guys started getting the same gear that he was using and trying to sound like him. And some of the guys even started, you know, kind of mimicking his stage presence and his stage moves and trying to move like Tom. So, and that's just to show you how influential, you know, Tom has been. So Tom, thank you for the reply video, and thanks for the great music. So now on to the Mostortion. So the Mostortion was part of the 10 series. So they went from, of course, the 9 series to the 10 series. And, well, actually there was the Master series kind of in between there. But this line was, the 10 series was all about making a good sounding pedal, but at a cheaper price, so they could be more competitive in the market. And unfortunately, they started using a not as good switch, and they switched to plastic shafted pots, and they stopped having the jacks mounted on the housing. Instead, they're mounted to the circuit board and then are just sticking out through holes. So these pedals are not to the same construction standards that the 9 series was, and that's just kind of the way it is. What I was told was that the yen was really strong against the dollar, and they needed to make a less expensive product so they could be competitive. So, anywho, so as far as the Mostortion, I had never, you know, heard of it until there was a magazine called Guitar Shop in the 1990s, and, you know, pre-internet, pre-YouTube, they had a kind of revolutionary thing called electric blueprint. So pre-rig rundown or anything else like that, they were putting guitar players' rigs in print where you could see what they were actually using, their guitars, amps, pedals, everything. So they had one on Leroy Parnell. Now, if you're not familiar with Leroy, he's a great artist who kind of, you know, Texas guy, got his, you know, he had a big kind of country mainstream, you know, career in the 90s, but yet he was still able to, you know, be kind of himself to a degree. And then, of course, he's done more, you know, kind of soul Texas Roadhouse kind of music and since the early 2000s. Great artist, great slide player, always stellar tones. So the electric blueprint indicated that he was using a Mostortion. So I was curious, but I couldn't find one anywhere. I don't know if it was just the music stores that I frequented at, but down in Texas, but I couldn't find a Mostortion. So fast forward to 2003, I'm working with Brad Paisley. We're opening a show for Vince Gill at the New York State Fair. And I'm looking around at all the gear. I'm looking at Vince's stuff, and then I noticed his guitar player, who at the time his name was Tom Britt, and this is the brother of Bob Britt. And Tom's an amazing player, amazing straight ahead guitar player, amazing slide player. And he had 2 Vox amps. He had an original AC30 and he had a reissue AC15. It was running like on a Variac, and he had a pedal board that had a Mostortion on it. So that was the first time I saw one in person, and I was wishing that I could, play through it. So fast forward a couple more years, I've gotten off the road. I'm working for Bob at Truetone. I've gotten to know Jeff Senn, and Jeff Senn contacts me and he says, "Hey, I've got this pedal that I need y'all to make a copy of. Y'all need to make a copy of this pedal." And I said, "Well, we're not really in the copy business, but if you're really excited about a circuit, I'd like to at least hear it." So he said, "Okay, well, I'll send it to you." So probably should have just stopped by his house. He's in Nashville. But anyway, he dropped it in the mail. So one of these shows up, and I was like, "Yay! I finally get to play through one of these things." So I played through it, and I liked it. I think it had a great drive sound, and then also the 3-band EQ is quite useful. So then I showed it to Bob, and Bob, we played through it, and there were some artifacts that that Bob didn't really like, but what really was the kicker was Bob looked under the hood, and the MOSFET chip, which again, this is where it gets its name, Mostortion MOSFET distortion. And just to give a little backstory, MOSFETs in the 80s and 90s became very popular as kind of a transistor that would sound closer to a tube. So the MOSFET chip was no longer made that was used in this pedal. And so it was impossible, if we even wanted to make a copy of it, it was impossible to do it, to make real production runs of it. You could make like a limited run of them, maybe 100 or so, but wasn't really interested. So I kind of put the pedal away for a little bit, then I played through it some more, then I said, I kind of like it. So again, this was like 8 to 10 years ago, so I got on eBay and I got one for 100, I think it was actually $80. Got it for $80. Liked it, started using it some. Then of course, as it goes, because of how not well made it was, I bought another one, and this one, the foot switch went bad in it, so I had XTS rehouse it. So they did the wonderful kindness of an improvement of having the jacks mounted to the housing. Also, it has a nicer foot switch there. Barry and Greg, those are great guys. So anyway, they did a great job. So so I kind of started getting into the pedal, and more recently, I found this. This is a Karma MTN10, and this is a Mostortion copy. So, because since I bought those 8 to 10 years ago, the pedal has become a lot more popular and become, kind of people are asking like $300 and up for them. So this is a copy that's around $200. It's a small footprint. It has, higher quality pots. It's true bypass. The jacks, are mounted to the housing like they should be, and it sounds like a Mostortion. So if anyone's out there wanting a Mostortion, I highly recommend one of these instead of, going after an old one. I have some old ones because I paid, you know, $100 for them. But if you're, you know, wanting a new one, get one of these. So, so what does it sound like? Well, to me, it kind of is in the Tube Screamer family, but the MOSFET chip, I guess, and the 3-band EQ just kind of give it a different flavor. So today I've got my handy dandy Danocaster Blackguard with the Julian Lage neck pickup and the 52T bridge pickup. And I've been using D'Addario 9/5 through 44 strings on all my demos so far. But I've actually been able to step up to 10. So these are Ernie Ball 10 through 46 are on it right now. I've been having hand pain issues since about the March of last year, and so it's been getting better, and so I've been able to do that. And I like 10s better because of the feel of them and the tone. I mean, they hit your pedals with more signal. They sound bigger. And they just have a good feel to them. And sometimes, you know, lighter gauge strings can just at times be almost harder to play because you feel like you're overplaying them. So I'm glad to be able to do this, and I'm getting my hand strength back up. So a quick aside, hand strength is very important to guitar tone. So that's how you wring tone out of the instrument, is by having good hand strength. So sometimes you need to use lighter gauge strings, and that's what I did, you know, when you don't have as much hand strength, so that you can still get a good tone out of it, because you have to be able to command the string. Okay, that's enough yammering. So here is the dry signal. And here's the Mostortion. Has kind of a sizzle to the top end, and you know, has a nice, you know, feel to it. Now I want to show you some of the EQ on here. So it's neat to kind of take the bass and dump it. So right now all the tone controls are at noon, but I'm gonna dump the bass. So actually I'm gonna put it back so you can hear it first. Okay, so here I'm going to play something. Now I'm going to dump the bass. Okay, now I've put the bass back to noon, and I'm going to dump all the mids so you can hear what that sounds like. Pretty useful. So I'm going to put that back to noon. Now you can dump or boost the treble, but here's to me one of the great tricks with the treble, and you can do this with any overdrive pedal that will kind of clean up as you back it off, is you go to the neck position and you kind of boost the treble and the level a little bit, and then you back off the volume here and you get a really great neck pickup sound. I learned this from Brad Paisley. So he would use a Tube Screamer and any kind of neck pickup, whether it was a humbucker or single coil, whatever it was, you know, he would use an overdrive unit, and then he would turn down the volume on the instrument enough where it would, you know, clean up some, and you end up getting a really nice neck pickup tone. So nice little trick there to put in your bag if you're trying to kind of get an even nicer neck pickup sound. So as far as kind of who made the Mostortion popular, as far as Nashville players, I'd have to give Leroy Parnell credit because from him, you know, of course, Leroy toured with Delbert McClinton, and all of the Delbert McClinton guys, you know, like Rob McNally and, you know, of course, other guys that were kind of associated with them, Bob and Tom Britt and on, you know, they started using it. Jeff Senn said that he learned about it from Rob McNally, and then I think Derek Wells learned it from Jeff Senn, or maybe it was Rob McNally. So also, as far as outside of Nashville players, I know John Leventhal was using the Mostortion, you know, by the early 90s, and was still using it off and on. He didn't use it in the Truetone Lounge episode that you know, where I interviewed him, but he was using it when I saw him last year in 2019. In fact, he had one of these. He had a rehoused one by XTS. So when I saw him play with Roseanne Cash, his wife, last year. So there you have it, the Mostortion. Great overdrive, you know, unit. Again, you don't have to get an old one. You can get one of these. Of course, if you can get an original one for $100, get it. But otherwise, I suggest, you know, one of these guys. So thank you, and I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Please subscribe and please share. Bye-bye.